All right, hi everyone. I'm Greg Stanton. I'm a Congress member, but for purposes of this video, I'm a dad who's home with my two young kids, a 13-year-old son, a 9-year-old daughter, and we're trying to figure out what to do during this quarantine period, the stay-at-home period, just like any other parents. And I'm here with my wife, Nicole, and I'll have her introduce herself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Stanton. I'm a lawyer. And I've also done a lot of work with bullying and adverse childhood experiences, specifically working with Phoenix Children's Hospital. So I'm excited about our conversation here today. But as Greg said, for purposes of what we're talking about today, my most important role right now is mom to Trevor and Violet.
And so the point of today's discussion and conversation is really the impact of this coronavirus and the stay-at-home period and the separation from friends and family, the impact on children and their thinking and their mindset and their psychology. And so we have an incredible expert here to help us guide through some of the thought processes and ideas that we're all going through. She's an adolescent and child psychiatrist, Dr. Funda Bachini. Great to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us here today. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I think it's important definitely to get the message out. So I've been working with the team here to provide information and support to the community and the kids and the parents. I am a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I am the medical director of the inpatient unit here at Phoenix Children's Hospital.
Well, thanks again for being with us. Okay, Nicole and I are probably your typical family dealing with the coronavirus. She's a very busy, successful lawyer. She's taken over the family room table and turned it into her law office because she's general counsel of a successful company. I've taken over the home office because we're not in Washington, D.C. I'm here working with my constituents and community leaders and talking to experts and talking to other Congress members. So I'm on the phone all the time. So we're trying to run two busy careers. At the same time, we're trying to homeschool our 13-year-old son, who's a 7th grader, and our 9-year-old daughter, who is a 4th grader. So the first question is, for advice for parents like us, because we have these exact same issues, for people in our situation with kids at home, how do you recommend that we talk to our kids about COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're absolutely right. So many of the parents that reach out and that we see are in that situation where they spouses and teachers and continue to have a profession and have a lot going on, and now you have kids at home, and what do you say? I think the most important thing is to talk to them about it. A lot of times parents feel that if kids aren't bringing it up, they shouldn't say anything at all. There is no way that you are not aware. Trevor and Violet know what's going on, right? So times where they're feeling calm and relaxed and you're feeling calm and relaxed. And I just tell people to normalize it. Hey, you know, life is different. Mom and I are at home working. You guys aren't in school. How do you feel about that? Or to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, Doctor, I have a question actually. Greg touched upon this. We are obviously working full-time, but we are trying to homeschool our children. And I'm sure like many parents out there, at least my friends who I've spoken to, and maybe they're just trying to make me feel better. But we get a lot of resistance from our kids in terms of trying to keep them focused on their education for, you know, a good chunk of the day. I think a lot of parents are worried and trying to figure out that balance. Like, is it more important to keep my kids on track educationally, or is it more important that, you know, I really try to make them feel comfortable and safe during this time period? So that's a question I have for you is, you know, obviously you're not an educator and I'm sure they might give me a different answer, but my perspective has been, I want my kids to feel safe during this time period, and I think they can catch up. So what's your thought on that?
That's absolutely right. You know, I tell moms all the time that moms have great instincts, so it's important to trust those. What the research shows us is that when your brain is under stress and you don't feel safe, you can't learn anyway. So it is really important for the kids to feel safe and supported. Those needs come first. And then to do the learning as well. I mean, my kids are in kindergarten and second grade. So the schoolwork and pressure getting into seventh grade or high school, the pressure goes up. But I tell all parents to look at the curriculum being sent home as not as I have to every day do everything on this list. That puts a lot of stress on you. It puts a lot of stress on your child. So look and assess, when your kids are feeling off or anxious, right? So assess where they're at. The essentials and do those and prioritize your wellness and their wellness.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's helpful.
So a lot of kids are feeling anxious. They're feeling stress. They probably watch CNN along with mom and dad and see a lot of very difficult stories about what people around the United States and the country are going through. They're worried about the next week, and they're also worried about their long-term future. What advice do you have for parents about how we help our kids deal with stress and anxiety?
So one of the important things I think for parents and for kids is to try to minimize that exposure to things like CNN and other news, a source or two that you get your information on, and listen to that and then let it go. If that is constantly playing in the background, it's hard. Very lucky so far in Arizona, I think, and looking at places like New York, when you see those things happening, that's to minimize that exposure that they have. And I think the other is to stress to your kids their, sometimes kids feel a sense of helplessness because they don't have a lot of control, but there's actually a lot of things that are, right? So your kids and all the other kids are not going to school, and that's a big deal. That's their social responsibility, and they're contributing to society by doing that. They're practicing good hand hygiene. They're wearing masks, right? They're all making sacrifices and choices to keep themselves safe and everyone else safe. And having that sense of purpose is protective against anxiety. Also, putting things into place that help mitigate anxiety is important. So that's, exercise, allowing them time to do some exercise. We are getting to that time in Arizona where that will be inside exercise and not so much outside exercise. But for little kids, it's as easy as putting on the music and having a dance party in your home, right? Your older kids, things like videos that are on YouTube or other exercise videos, practicing mindfulness.
Okay, so you're saying don't let your kids watch too much CNN.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll tell my neighbor that may have violated that, not to do that anymore. Oops, darn it. I've learned my first good parenting lesson on this call. I may be a violator of that. Not anymore.
Good.
Doctor, you were talking earlier about the term kind of toxic stress is one of the things that you talked about. And that is an area that I've also worked on with the work I've done on bullying. Right now, I guess it concerns me that we have, luckily our kids are here with both of their parents. And even though they might be watching too much CNN, they do have two responsible adults in the house who both do have their jobs. And coming out of this crisis and during this crisis, you have families who, the parents have lost their job. They may be experiencing significant economic challenges. And I think pre-coronavirus, it would be easy for, someone like us to reach out and help other families. But right now, when we're going through social distancing, it makes it a lot more difficult. Are there things that we can do to help other families emotionally, maybe sending cards or sending little gifts. I'm assuming that that's something that you think would be helpful as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is helpful for grown-ups to do, to help community agencies that are still providing services. I mean, there's still things going on to try to help families. A lot of it is now remote, right?
Mm-hmm.
We remotely provide support when we can't do that in person. So that's still very important to do. To reach out, also really helpful for kids. I get questions all the time about, well, what if my kid can't do Zoom or they feel socially anxious about doing that? Writing people letters and cards is great. A great way to show people support and to also, again, cultivate that sense of, hey, I'm helping my community out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now here is a question that probably every parent watching this wants to know. How much PS4 is too much PS4 for kids? And I say that knowing that they, that sometimes PS4 video games are social opportunities to interact with other kids because they play games in which they strategize with other kids and work together or play against each other. But what's your advice about gaming and screen time?
Yeah, so screen time is a big issue because a lot of the curriculum that's coming out is on Google Classroom or Zoom or other web platforms. I tell parents not to worry about that. If you are using it to reach out and connect to others, or you are using it to do your schoolwork, I wouldn't worry about it. That parents can ease up on themselves a little bit. Kids are going to be on devices more. Whenever kids are interacting with other people on the internet, though, you want to make sure as a parent that you are aware of who they're interacting with, and that the content is the nature of the video games. I mean, if they're on for 8 hours a day shooting people on a PS4 game, right, that's probably not a great idea. But having them let off steam, having them have social interaction platforms is okay to do. Because as parents, it's hard to be at home all day with it's hard for the kids and it's hard for the parents, and everyone needs that little breakaway sometimes, and that's okay.
So I have a question. Having just been out, I was out about an hour and a half ago with my daughter to pick up her things from her school because they gathered her items and set them outside of the classroom door. So we picked them up. And it's clear that when you go out, which we haven't done much of, we've gone to the grocery store one time to get an ice cream cake. But beyond that, it is clear that when you do go out now, that the world has changed. She's 9. And I'm sure in her mind, even though we have not talked a lot about how the world has changed, it's obvious from just seeing it. You see people with masks on, you see the plastic barrier at the grocery store, the dots on the floor. It's clear that life has changed. How do you talk to your kids about a change in the future when we ourselves don't even know what that future looks like? Just that uncertainty.
Again, I think it's important to bring it up to them. So, you can say to her, hey, I noticed when we went to get your stuff that these are the differences. Like, do you have questions about what's going to happen in the future? And because kids, what is it going to look like if I do come back here in August, right? So I think focusing with them on the fact that we don't know everything, but then following it up with, this is what we do know. We that are experts in this area of epidemiology and pandemics that are working really hard to make sure that when we have even though that's different, you're going to be safe. So focusing on the things that we are sure of, like we will get back to a new normal, right? That will happen. We may not know what that is going to be like exactly, but we'll get there someday in which everyone will be safe. And focusing on those areas that we know, I think is important. But the worst thing you can do is just ignore it. So talking about it, bringing it up, is great because we also want to model resilience to our kids. So this is the opportunity to build resilience in our children. So when you talk about toxic stress, then overwhelmed our capacity to deal with it. But when parents are present and supportive, and there for their children, across stressors in the future, they'll be able to deal with them better.
I have a question about structure. Our kids had fairly structured lives before the pandemic. School, obviously, 5 days a week, and then basketball practice or gymnastics or swim class or Girl Scouts, whatever it may be. They had pretty structured lives. How much do you recommend that parents try to create regular structure in children's lives during the stay-at-home period?
Structure is very important for kids, so especially for young kids, but for older kids too, of being able to predict what comes next. So things that you can keep in place, like, hey, on school nights, we go to bed early, up and do school in the morning. These are the times that we have dinner. This is, what time we go to bed on weekends. Those types of structure and routines are really important. I think, again, it's about like these are the times we're going to do things. But then if you notice, hey, I'm getting stressed and overwhelmed, my child is getting overwhelmed, communicate that and say, you know what? We're having a stress day today, and we're going to put on our jammies and we are going to watch a movie. And teaching them again that that's okay. You set up expectations for yourself, but it's important to check in with yourself and know when you need a break.
That's great advice.
Really good. So I want to ask you a question about something, and I think I know what the answer is going to be. It's something that moms in particular, I think, are not good at, particularly during times like this, when we're working full time, we're homeschooling, we're making 3 square meals a day. Can you talk about the importance of self-care for parents and caregivers of children?
So, as a mom with 3 little kids that works, and all my friends, moms put way too much pressure and stress on themselves. Dads do too, but mostly moms put a lot of pressure and stress on themselves. So it is really important to, one, take time for yourself when you can. That may be waking up 15 minutes early before the kids wake up to just have like a coffee, right? Or like I said, when you notice your kids are overwhelmed or you're overwhelmed, being able to say, hey, we're going to take it right now and sit and watch this movie, so you have that time with them. And also decreasing the expectations of being perfect everything, right? We live in a world of Pinterest parenting now, where everything has to be perfect all the time. And my friends are always really glad to hear that I feed my kids frozen dino nuggets, and that's okay. Kids like frozen dino nuggets. My husband and I made from scratch mac and cheese one time. Nobody ate it, right? So they're okay with those parenting shortcuts. And that's complete breakfast for dinner, those types of things that kids love that you can do and that are easy. That's fine. I mean, one of the things I find is that, moms are so stressed. I've had moms start to cry when I told them it was okay to do sandwiches for dinner one night, right? So decreasing the expectations on all those things and being able to set good boundaries for yourself, both set their own anxiety. Because one of the things that kids look to most for should I be anxious or not is parental and especially mom's anxiety. So if you can reframe it as a mom as, hey, me taking care of myself is taking care of my kids, that can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Where do you get frozen duck nuggets? That sounds pretty darn good.
Oh, they have them. Costco sells them, Target has them, and they are tasty.
We're going to be eating good tonight. I'm looking forward to that. All right, doctor, thanks so much. This has been hugely helpful. I got to be honest, I violated almost every piece of good advice you've given. So from this day forward, I can manage the stay-at-home period a lot better. In all seriousness, it's been great advice. Thank you for your time. Any final piece of advice? What we didn't cover during this conversation that you want to impart to moms and dads, parents, single moms, single dads, aunts, uncles, other caregivers, anyone that's taking care of kids during this unprecedented, difficult time, the best piece of advice you can give them?
I think the most important thing is to be patient and kind with yourself and with your kids. Your relationship with your child is their biggest protective factor during times of stress. So just spending time and being with them is the most important thing you can do.
Doctor, thank you very much.
Well
we
said.
may be calling you again for more great advice. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for sitting down with me and taking this time.
Thanks, Dr.
Thank you
Bachini.
so
That was
much.
great. Thank you.
You're welcome.